Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel today. So I'll be taking you all through from the cutting to the sewing of this shirt pant or trouser you see right here on the screen. So it has an elastic waistband, it also has a rope fixed to the waist, and it has size pockets as well. So for the fixing of my elastic, I'll show you all the proper way to go about this so that you don't end up having folds after fixing your elastic, because a lot of people do encounter this problem. So it's an unavoidable problem if you don't really go about learning how to properly do this, which I'll be sharing with you all in today's tutorial. It's beginners friendly 100%. Without much ado, let's get started. So here with me I have 3 yards of this fabric, which is called a linen fabric. So you can add more inches of fabric or less depending on your body size. So this linen fabric I have right here is pure white, and in case you might be interested in getting this fabric, it's transparent and a little bit slippery when felt on your body. So before I start drafting, I also have my elastic, which is 1.25 inches wide. So this is the elastic I'll be fixing to the band, and it stretches very well. We know there are fake elastic in the market, so please stretch your elastic properly before you have to buy it. Okay, so it's 1.25 inches wide, so I'm just going to say it's 1.5 inches, though it's not really up to 1.5 inches, but I'm just going to say it's 1.5 inches. So before I go on ahead to fold my fabric, I will divide the largest circumference of my body part, which is the hip, by 4. So my hip divided by 4 is 11.25 inches. Then I'll add extra 8 inches to that. Then altogether I'll be having 19.25 inches. So measure the largest circumference on your body for your trouser and divide it by 4 and add extra 8 inches before you fold. So I did this, and now I'm folding my fabric. So after folding, I measured this out. I got 19 inches on my preferred inches. Then I'll go ahead and pin this all together because this fabric is slippery and not stretchy, like I said earlier. When I'm done pinning, from the top part of my fabric, I'll leave about 1 inch space. Then I'll rule a line across this way, and that will be my waistline. And all my measurements will be starting from this line, which I'm ruling right here. So from the folded edge of my fabric, I'll start marking 5 inches as my allowance or my extension. So I honestly don't know how visible this is going to be to you all, but I couldn't use a colored chalk for my markings because this is a white fabric and it absorbs color a lot. But the chalk I'm making use of right here is not as white as my fabric. So if you look properly, you understand everything I'll do right here. Okay, so I'll be subtracting 1.5 inches from all the vertical lines I'll be marking right here. So that 1.5 inches I'll subtract will be for my band. So I placed that 1.5 inches on that first line, which is my waistline, and I marked my hip length of 8.5 inches. That is the mark I made right there. So the first line is my waistline, the second one is actually my hip line. So to get your crotch length, you have to divide your hip circumference by 4. So if you want it to be a high waist trouser, you add extra 2 inches to whatever you have. But if you want it to be a normal waist or a low waist, you just add 1.5 inches. So when I divided my hip circumference of 45 inches by 4, I got 11 inches, and I added extra 2.5 inches to mine. Okay, so right now I have 3 lines, which is the first one is my waistline, I have my hip line, and then my crotch line. So for my waist circumference, I'm going to mark my hip circumference divided by 4 because we'll be fixing an elastic to this waist part of our trouser. So from that 5 inches line I marked earlier, which is for my extension, on that line, that is where I started marking my waist and my hip towards this other side. So these lines I have on my waist and also on my hip line, I extended it down to my crotch line. So from that line I extended from my crotch line, I'll divide my thigh circumference by 2. Okay, so this is where you take your thigh or your lap measurement. So you divide it by 2 on your crotch line. Then from that line, which I extended down from my hip line, I'm going to mark it towards this 5 inches extension or allowance line. So my thigh circumference is 32 inches, divided into 2 is 16 inches, which I marked very close to the folded edge of that my fabric. Then on that 5 inches line, which is for my allowance or my extension, I went up by 1.5 inches to create my curve for my trouser, and I went ahead to connect this way. So I believe you see everything I did right here, and it's very clear to you all, and you can see the markings because my chalk is not as white as my fabric. So I want to get the length of my trouser of 41 inches. The length is 39 inches, so I'm adding extra 2 inches for hemming. So altogether I'll be having 41 inches. So I first marked 33 inches, I placed my tape on it, and now marked my 41 inches because of the length of my table is not wide enough to mark everything at the same time. So now I'm going ahead now to cross check my extension to ensure that it doesn't exceed 5 inches or is not less than 5 inches, so that I don't get it wrong while putting the body measurement of this dress. So on the crotch line, I divided my thigh circumference into 2 equal halves. I got the middle. So this middle line I have right there is what is referred to as your center line or your grain line. So I'll extend it all the way to the hem of my trouser. I feel good, you look great, I like you, I can't wait. A first time, a first date, you're so fine, I'm so late. You sip wine. So I'll measure out what I have on my crotch, that's my thigh. So what I have there now is 16 inches. So I'll be subtracting 4.5 inches from that. Then I'll be left with 11.5 inches. So I'll divide this 11.5 inches into 2. So I have about 5 inches and quarter. So that 5 inches and quarter, I'll place it on that middle line or grain line, and now mark what I have at both sides on the hem of my trouser. So when I'm done with that, now from my crotch, I'm going to connect this to the length of my trouser for the both sides of this my trouser, just as I'm doing right here. So now I'm done doing this. I'll come to the hip side. Towards the hip side, I'm just going to mark 1 inch for ease, okay, because it's going to be a very free trouser. I don't want it to be tight or fitted at all. So I'll mark it up to the waist area, then I'll go ahead and cut out. So normally we don't add our stitching allowance to the front parts or panel of our trouser, but because I want this one to be a free trouser, that is the reason I added this 1 inch just at the side, towards the hip side. So after drafting, go ahead now and cut out. That's how simple it is to draft out your trouser. So there is not much thing for the back part, just to add our allowance and we start sewing. So cut out everything the same way you drafted. So on the crotch part, if you want to leave about half of an inch away from your initially marked crotch, you can go ahead and do that, okay. So for the top part or the waist, please do leave about half of an inch, which will be our joining allowance to the band of our trouser, okay. So I went ahead now to pin all around this my trouser to have these two in place because we are not done yet. So my remaining fabric I'll get right here so that I'll also fold it into 2. So this is for us to cut out the back part of our trouser. So I'll also go ahead and pin as well, just as I've done for the front part of my trouser. So I get the front part of my trouser and I'm going to place it on this folded fabric I have right here. So please ensure there are spaces at the top and at the sides of your trouser as you place the front one on your fabric, okay. Just give it spaces all around, okay. So I now went ahead to pin the front part of my trouser to this fabric I have folded into 2. We like all the same tracks, listen all night in the sheets all black. Said I'm falling fast, don't remember life before you, that's fact. I feel good, you look great, I like you, I can't wait. Now starting from the crotch part on this my trouser, I'll go ahead and mark 1 inch away from the front part of the crotch I have. So when I get to that point on my crotch, I'll also go ahead and continue marking, but at this point I'll marking 2 inches all the way to the base or hem of this my trouser. So I'll also connect it together using my free hand, but you can use a ruler if you're not used to that. So on the crotch part on my trouser, I'll go up by 1.5 inches and now slant it to the other part of the waist of my trouser. So I also at the size on this hip side, I'm going to also mark 1 inch from the waist to the hem. So this is all for the back part of our trouser. That was why I told you that is quite simple, and you also go ahead to cut out. So cut out everything the same way you've drafted, and when I'm done, I'm going to separate the back piece of my trouser from the front piece. So this is actually a dartless trouser. I'm not stitching any darts to this trouser. Okay, so now I've gone ahead to remove my front panel and back panel of my trouser. I'll go ahead now to cut out for my pockets. So on the waist part of the front panel of my trouser, I'm going to go in by 2.5 inches from the hip side. Then for the length, I'm going to mark about 7.5 inches downward. Down for the width, I'll mark about 2.5 inches inward from the hip side inward. And now use my ruler and connect these 2 points this way and cut it out. So I'll get another fabric that is enough for my pocket, and I'm just going to fold it into 2. So for the length of my pocket, I want it to be 10 inches long. Okay, as you can see, and I'll fold this. So when I folded this, it's 13 inches wide and 10 inches long. Okay, so I added extra 1 inch to the 10 inches for my weaving, because I'll weave out about 1 inch from the length of my trouser. Okay, so the length is 11 and the width is 13 inches. So now that I folded this into 2, I flip this over. Now on that closed part of my fabric, I'm now going to place this part of my trouser I cut off exactly on it, making sure that the sides at that point aligns, and also the waist part aligns this way. Then I'll go ahead and cut this out. So I have a more detailed tutorial how to go about the cutting and the fixing of your pockets, your trouser. Okay, so I've gone ahead now to fix my pocket to my trouser, and you can see what I have. So on the front part of your trouser, right sides facing each other, you're going to join the crotch area using just 1/2 inch, just as I've done right here. So make sure you still leave it the way it is. You now join your crotch before you go ahead to now open it up this way. So after joining, this is what yours is also going to look like. And I've also fixed my pocket. I'll be dropping a detailed tutorial in the comment section on how to go about the fixing, the cutting and the fixing of your pockets. Okay, so now that we have done this for the front part, and I've also weaved as well, I'm going to get one of the back panels of my trouser, not on the crotch area but on the sides. I'm also gonna head to weave. I'm going to join it right sides facing the front panel of my trouser on the sides this way. So when I now do this from the waist, I'll start pinning this all the way to the base. So after pinning, I'll go ahead and mark 1/2 inch from the waist all the way to the base. When I'm done marking it, I'll go to my sewing machine and stitch it down. So I also do it for the 2 sides of this my trouser. So catch me if I fall. So I've done this for the 2 parts of my trouser. When I was done, I made sure I ironed the side seam open. So this will enable you to have a very flat side, because if you don't do this, most times you have your fabric bulging at the sides of your dress, and that doesn't look nice at all. So the 2 back crotch of your back panel of your trouser, place them right sides facing each other this way. So from the waist, you go ahead and pin. So I'm joining this one now using 3/4 of an inch, that's 1/2 inch and 2 lines. Okay, so after joining, this is what I have. I also went ahead to weave. So I open this up now so that the wrong side of the trouser can be facing the camera, as you can see. So on the crotch now, I'm going to start joining the center part, because that's the only part we have open now. So ensure that the 2 lines or the joints on your crotch are lines for the front and the back, and you go ahead and pin. So after pinning, you're going to stitch from one part of your trouser to the other side using just 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch. After stitching, you go ahead and also hem the base of your trouser. So I've gone ahead to do all of that, and you can see what I have right now. So the next is to work on the waist area for our band. So I'll start by measuring out what I have around the waist. So when I was done, I had 52 inches altogether. Remember all the allowances and ease that was added to this. We didn't make use of everything. That is why it's more than that. But if you don't want yours to be more than that, you can go ahead and work with your exact ease you left and just shape it. So here I have my band, which is 2 inches long, and for the wideness, I already have my waist circumference I measured out and added extra 1 inch for stitching allowance. So at both ends now, I'm going to secure it using just 1/2 inch. So I'll pin both sides and stitch. So before I go ahead to fix my band to the waist part of my trouser, I'll have to create a hole where I'll be fixing my rope. So this is the center of my band now. Then for the top part, I marked half of an inch down, and from the base I mark half of an inch up. Now from this center line, which I achieved with the help of my iron, I marked half of an inch away from it. So I did it for the both sides. So I'll take it again. From the top part, I marked half inch downward. From the base of my band, I marked half inch upward. Now from that center of my band, I moved away by half of an inch. Okay, so I will do it for the both sides of this band I have right here. This is the middle, the center. Then I'll go ahead and make just a slight cut on just one piece, like this band that is on top. Okay, so please, this my band is on fold. Okay, so just a little cut. It's not meant to be too wide, okay, because I'll be fixing a hook and eye to this, as you can see right here, because I want to achieve a total neat finishing right here. So I'm just going to fix this now to this hole I've created so far, and I'll come back here and show you all what I have so far. So if you don't want to fix a hook and eye to this, you can just go ahead and just fix your rope. I just want to have a neat finishing at the end of the day. So this is what I have after fixing my hook and eye to this. So the next thing is for me to fix my elastic. So I measured my waist circumference of 38 inches and I subtracted 5 inches from it. Right now I have 32 inches. So this is the length of my elastic currently. So I'm going to secure the both ends this way. So you see what I've done right here using just half of an inch. So I've gone ahead now to do this on my sewing machine, so you can see how it's looking. It's now a band, like a one piece band that is round. So I'll go ahead now to fix it on the band of my trouser. So open this your band up this way, and you're going to fix your elastic or pushing your elastic just as I'm doing right here. So you can go ahead as well to pin your elastic to your fabric, but as you're doing this, ensure that your elastic doesn't get to the base of your band. So there needs to be space, like half of an inch space at the base of your band, so that your elastic, so that you don't stitch on top of your elastic. Okay, so by the time you must have arranged your band this way, you start stitching the both parts of your band together, like the both ends on the base. Don't stitch on top of your elastic. Okay, so while I was joining my band, that was a mistake I actually made, because I thought I was fixing a zipper. It actually escaped my mind at that point. So when I was joining, I realized my mistake. So the mistake is this: I was not supposed to join the ends of my band separately. I was supposed to join them together. So you can see that right here, I've lost one part of my band, and I'm also going to lose the other end of my band, because I'm meant to join them both together using half of an inch and not separately, just as I showed you previously. Okay, so please don't make that mistake I made. All right, so they're meant to be like one piece, right sides facing each other. You're supposed to join. So you also see what I'll do right here. So when you join them right sides facing each other, you can now go ahead and flip them to the other side. Okay, so this is what I mean. I believe you understand. Okay, please pardon me, it was a mistake that skipped my mind. Okay, so after this, now this is what I have. I'll now continue fixing or stitching this my band at the base together. So make sure that your elastic is in between this your band, then you now secure the base together as I'm doing right now.
Sitting here praying that this night's gonna last. You got it all on tap. I'm loving your vibe, always have your back.
So as you are doing this, you realize that it will start stretching on its own. Please, I'll say it again, don't stitch on top of your elastic. Okay, so after making this your stitch, you can see what I have right here. So the next thing is to actually secure this elastic on this band so that it doesn't have to be moving. Okay, so ensure that your elastic is exactly at the top part of that your band, or you can pin just as I said earlier. Then you now go ahead to stitch at least by half of an inch, okay, on top of your elastic. So in order for me not to stitch more than half of an inch, I had to start from the front part where I fix this my hook and eye, so that, because that's where I started marking my half of an inch from. So from there now, I'm going to stitch this all around till I get to the other side or end of my band. So as you are stitching this, please make sure that you stretch or pull your band. You don't have to stitch it together with these ruffles or gathers on it. So stitch all around using just half of an inch to get to the other side.
Like all the same tracks, listen all night in the sheets all black. Said I'm falling fast, don't remember life before you, that's fact. I feel good, you look great, I like you, I can't wait. A first time, a first date.
So now I've gotten to this other side and I'll stop. So this is what it looks like. You can see how stretchy this is, and you can see how nice it has really come out. So the next, I'm going to fix this to the waist part or area of our trouser. So I'll get the middle of this my band and notch it. Then I'll get the front crotch of my trouser, that crotch in the front part. So I'm going to pin that notch part on my band on the waist or on the crotch of this my front trouser. Then I'm going to pin. By the time I pin, that half of an inch which is left for my stitching allowance, that's what I'm going to stitch on, very close to my elastic. So that is why you should make your band half inch wider than your elastic, so that you can have room for stitching. It shouldn't be, if your elastic you're working with is 1.5 inches wide, your band should be 2 inches. Your band shouldn't be 1.5 inches, so that at the end of the day you can have your stitching allowance, just as I have right here. So you're going to place the right side of your band to the right side of your fabric or your trouser on the waist, and you start joining using just half of an inch. So you continue running your threads all the way around till you get to the point where you started. So I believe you understand everything I'm doing right here. I believe it's not confusing at all.
You're so fine, I'm so late. You sip wine, I drink straight. Don't waste time to my place. I feel my heart erase. So catch me if I fall.
So I'll fix our rope now by using a safety pin to clip this our rope in the middle. I got this rope for 200 naira. So when I fix this my hook and eye, it was really difficult for this my office pin to pass through this because of reasons best known to it. But at the end of the day, I had to squeeze the head of my safety pin so it can pass through. So after this whole struggle and everything, this rope I bought still loosened inside this waistband I have right here. So at the end of the day, I still ended up using the same exact fabric to cut out my rope. So when I achieve this, you also see what I have right here. So just carefully pass this through all around till you get to the other end or opening which you made on the front part of your trouser, just as I'm doing right here. So you can see that when I did this, when I brought this out, this was so annoying. So I had to also switch back to using this my exact fabric for my rope. Okay, so this is what I have when I was done doing everything. So you can see how nice and beautiful this is looking. Thank you all so much for watching. You can adjust it to any preferable waist size of your choice, and I really do appreciate for watching this far. If you're yet to subscribe, please kindly do so, and if you haven't, please do so. I'll see you next time on this same channel. Have a lovely time ahead of you. Bye.